Hello everyone, I'm gonna attempt to tell you the tactics for the fourth boss. Hopefully the other ones have gone okay and being helpful. So the fourth boss is called the Spirit Kings, and there's 4 different ones that we're gonna have to learn the abilities for and the tricky kind of passing abilities that they have. So I'm gonna go into the first one, which is Mogu'shan the Merciless, if I've said that right. And he has 3 abilities. He has an ability called Flanking Order. And this is where panda warriors come across, badass, we can't go near them, we can't attack them, they will kick our ass. And they kind of go across, and we have to avoid it. With this first phase, this first guy, we have to group up on the tank. This is because of an attack called Massive Attacks, and it's a frontal cone which is done on a tank, and we need to group up to share the damage. So while we're grouping up for massive attacks, we also need to follow the tank, who is going to avoid the flanking orders, and we're going to follow him while he avoids it very, very closely so that we share the damage. To make things more annoying, there's also ability he does called Annihilate. While we're absorbing the damage with the tank from massive attacks, and while we're avoiding panda warriors for flanking order, we also have to avoid something called Annihilate. Now what happens is that you'll see kind of rubble on the ground, and it's quite a wide area of effect, and we have to move out of it, but we have to still move with the tank so that we make sure we share the damage of flanking orders and make sure we also avoid damage of massive attacks and also avoid flanking orders, which isn't as hard as it sounds. We can do it. It just means that the tank will have to call out his lefts and his rights and where he's going, so that the DPS actually know. One thing I do advise for the tank that takes it is that when you get Annihilation, run through the boss and make everyone run through with you. That should help unless flanking orders kicks in, which of course then you're going to have to coordinate around. Now the next one depends, it can spawn in a random order. I'm going to go through them in an order, but it doesn't mean that's going to be the order we get it. The only way we know which one we're going to get is that when we do start the fight, you will see that the next one has kind of a swirly tornado, sand tornado around it, and that will signal who we're going to get next. But this order I'm about to give you isn't going to be the official order of the fight. So the bad news is that once the Merciless, Mogu'shan the Merciless dies and we get the new one, flanking orders is still active. So we still will have to avoid the horrible pandas that go across in a straight line that we can't attack, that will kill us if we touch them. That's just what we have to do. Now if we get Mogu'shan of the Endless Shadow, he has 3 abilities himself. The one ability he's got is Undying Shadows, and this is when he fixates on a member. This will be a move that fixates on a member, and then an ad will spawn where the member was. This ad will follow that raid member, and you have to kite it. You have to kite that ad. And what we do as a raid is we kill that ad when the ad's not near the raid, and then it spawns a void zone on the floor like a purple shadowy pool. And then that pool will get smaller and smaller, and then it will turn into an ad again, which will follow another person in the raid. They will kite it and we'll kill it, and then it will be another pool. Apparently I heard that you only kill an ad, I kill an ad 2 times so that it doesn't come back, but I'm not sure that's accurate. So basically if an ad is following you, you tell the raid, you run away, which is going to be annoying because, as you know, flanking orders could be up as well, and as well as other abilities which I'll explain later. Unlike the first guy, this guy has 2 abilities that forces you or makes you spread out. You want to be spreading out because there is ability called Shadow Burst, and this can be interrupted. There will be an interrupt rotation. Now hopefully we've got 4 people that can interrupt, but you will be given a rotation of interrupts so that this doesn't cause the raid much grief, but it is like a crash of shadow damage on the raid. So you want to space out, because if it hits, it's going to target you, and then you don't want to have people too close to you, so it hits them as well. And then the next thing he does is like a shadow chain effect, which is like chain lightning. So you don't want to be standing too close, because of course you will pass it on to other people. So you want to spread out, and the shadow chain lightning is called charged shadows. So you want to make sure that you stay spread out for this guy. Now, if we did get that guy second, his passable ability is Undying Shadows, which is the add one. So there could be a scenario now, which I'm going to go in, which is we've already got Flanking Orders, which we have to avoid. Now we've got Undying Shadows, which we haven't had chasing us, that we have to kill. And now we've got a third guy, which is Ming the Demented. Remember, I stress, this doesn't have to be the order, but depending on what one we get, they always have a passing ability. So we do need to remember them. So in Ming the Demented, he has something called Maddening Shout. Now this will make all of us hostile to each other. We can still control ourselves. We're not mind controlled, but we're hostile. What we have to do is we have to take 40k damage from our other raiders to break out and get back to normal. The best way I thought we could do this is by grouping up and causing AoE damage. Now you need to remember, certain moves, we keep the debuffs that you put on us. So we don't want dots, and we don't want a druid to swipe us, because then we have reduced armor or whatever else. We don't want that. So we want AoE that's clean. This is like Death and Decay, Consecration. 40k is a small amount, so we should be fine. But it's just to remember, beware on what you use, because you don't want to leave a raid member in a worse position than they need to be. So also with Ming the Demented, he has a Insanity Bar, which he has in both his modes. Now his first mode I'm going to talk about is Crazed mode, where he does higher damage the more insanity he has, and he will gain insanity anyway, so we can't stop it, but he'll gain more insanity by a move called Crazed Thoughts. Now we have to be quite smart with this, because of course if he hasn't got a lot of insanity, we want to interrupt this. It's cast every 15 seconds, I think. We want to interrupt it because we don't want him to build higher up and cause us more damage. But then when his bar is about, you know, 3/4 of the way and the damage is very high, we want to allow him to cast these so that we go through to the next phase quicker. This will be called out by the raid leader, so it's something we're going to have to learn, of what's our threshold and when we need to rush it and when we need to don't. Like when we need to be interrupting, basically. The next mode he will have is called Coward mode, which is he will run around like a coward, you know, doing a little thing that the gnomes do and everything else. Don't want to do an impression. So he'll run around like that and he'll gain insanity. And what happens this time is the more insanity he's got, the more damage he reflects. So if he has 60 sanity, he will reflect 30% damage. We need to watch this as well, which this could involve us stopping DPS because we're taking too high. So it's also learning our thresholds of if we can heal through it and cause DPS, because we know that our tank isn't being attacked, or if we need to say, look, it's hit 60, we need to stop. We're damaging ourselves too much. So that is to the raid leaders and the raid's discretion after trying him. Right, now we're going to talk about, I think it's Subsidized the Swift. If I've said that wrong, it doesn't matter. You know who I'm on about? We're calling him Mr. Swift. Right, I'm going to talk about his 3 abilities, which his first one is Pillage. And this involves him charging a raid member and causing them damage. Now, you need to space out, because he can do this to more than one. The person who does charge can't avoid this, so you just need to deal with it. It reduces your damage and healing by 50%, and then increases your physical damage taken by 50%. So you can deal with it. As you'll see, you kind of sometimes have to deal with it in the raid. The next thing he's got is Volley. Now, Volley is avoidable to an extent. He will stand in one direction, and he will cast a kind of cone of arrows in front of him. He will stay standing in that direction and then do a smaller cone of arrows, and then a smaller, more concentrated cone of arrows, kind of going The reason he's doing this is because the first cone of arrows we can take a hit from, and then it gets stronger with each one he does. So this is avoidable. As soon as you see him standing in that one direction doing the arrows, we want to be behind him. Now, of course, you'll see in a moment, it depends on when we get this guy to how easy it could be to avoid that. But I want to see people avoiding it, because it is possible. The last ability he has is called Rain of Arrows, and this is where we need to be spaced out, because the Rain of Arrows will come down and the person who's hit with it, or people who are hit with it, will be pinned to the floor and stunned. And the way we get them out is the arrows will become attackable, and we will attack the arrows to get them out. So we do need to be getting them out of this. Now I'm going to go into the passing abilities. Now, as you've seen that abilities are passed over, and every boss has one. The first guy that we encounter has flanking orders. So flanking orders goes on throughout the fight. It does happen less throughout the fight, so it will happen every for an example, every 30 seconds when he's alive, then every 75 seconds when he's not alive, but it still happens, so we have to watch out. So I've described flanking orders, which is a group of panda warriors in a straight line that move in a straight line towards us, and they aren't attackable, but they will kill us, so we don't want them to touch us. The next one we have to deal with is that once we've got Maddening Shout and we have to group up, it can be a bit strange to deal with the other abilities around. We have to beware of flanking order, because of course we have to group up for Maddening Shout, and then we have to all move together when it's coming, so we will have to have some communication with that. Another issue with Maddening Shout is that, as you've just heard, when we have Mr. Swift and the Endless Shadows, they encourage us to space out. So what we're going to have to do is space out during these two guys, and then when we get Maddening Shout, if we'd already had the guy and it's being carried over, group up, get it done, and move away again. So it's a very hectic fight by the end, if you can imagine. One of the other passing abilities is Pillage, which is the one we can deal with. It's annoying, and of course we do take less healing and damage, but we have to prioritise other things as well. So of course two guys encourage us to space out, and when we have to go in for Maddening Shout, we have to go in. We will have call outs in the raid because it will get quite hectic, so just make sure you do listen to the raid leader at the time. As Undying Shadows is a passing ability, we have to watch out. As you see, Maddening Shout makes us group up. Do not kill the ad while it's near the raid. Make sure that the ad is kited out by the person it's fixated to, and then we kill it. So these passing abilities can get in the way of each other, because we could have just grouped up for a Maddening Shout, and then flanking order comes and there's an ad out, and we've got to deal with the guy that's actually existing at the time as well. So it is very hectic. You just got to make sure you keep your eye on the ball, you know what each one does, and you've got to use your common sense. Like, if flanking orders is coming and you've got to run over a void zone made by an Undying Shadows ad, the damage will be less from the void zone, so run over it instead of getting hit in the face by a row of pandas and they kill you. So it is going to be a fight we have to learn. I've given you as much information as I can. Of course, once we know the order, when we get it, it will be easier for the raid leader then to plan and help the raid out. So I hope this helped, guys. This is the last video I'm doing tonight. It's quite late, so I will see you soon.